What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another Detroit Lions video. Now, the Detroit Lions, as everybody is aware, is moving on to their next coaching staff, moving on to their next regime, their next general manager, next head coach, next OC, DC, positional coaches. They have blown everything up from the Quinn Tricia era, and they are starting over anew. However, the biggest question on every Lions fan's mind is, did they get it right this time? Did Sheila Ford Hamp get this round right? Did the Fords, did the front office, did the organization get this regime right? And will this be the regime to finally take the Lions where they want to go? Now, that is the question we will be looking at today. That is the question, and that is the scenario that we will be taking a look at today. We'll go over every member of the staff that has been hired so far, go over the positives, some of the negatives, and really try to come to the answer of whether or not the Lions got it right. Now, before we get into the video, before we get into this new coaching regime, before we get into this new look Lions organization, if you are new to the channel and are enjoying this Detroit Lions content, please consider liking the videos and subscribing to the channel. It takes just 2 seconds out of your day to do so. It's quick, it's free, it's easy. As I said, takes just 2 seconds and you could be helping the channel out more than you could know. So if you could take those 2 seconds to like and subscribe, I would be greatly appreciative for it. But with all that being said, and without any further ado, let's get right in to taking a look at this new look Lions team and taking the look and asking the question, did the Lions get it right? Now, to answer the question very simply, I do believe the Detroit Lions got it right this time. I do believe they're putting the right people in power. I do believe they are adding the right pieces in the organization, and I do believe they are making the correct hires to put this Lions team in a position to be successful in the upcoming future and in the very near NFL future. Now, starting with the first hire of the offseason, starting with the man up front and the guy on top, Brad Holmes, I think this was a very solid hire by the Detroit Lions. I know there were some people that wanted Ed Dodds. I know there were some people that wanted Louis Riddick. I know there were some other people that didn't have Brad Holmes as their number one option. However, Brad has actually done a fairly good job so far with the Detroit Lions, which I'll talk about in just a minute. But overall, when looking at Brad Holmes, he's a very smart drafter. When you look at the guys he's drafted, when you look at the guys he has evaluated, it seems to be like he is very good at drafting. He seems to be very good at identifying talent, both in the NFL draft, and that will likely transfer over to the NFL level as well. He seems to be very good at identifying talent, and based off what I've seen so far, he seems to be very good at getting the most value out of his players, i.e. the Matthew Stafford. Now, looking at really the only big move that Brad Holmes has made so far with the deal regarding Matthew Stafford, with the trade scenario where his franchise quarterback wanted out of the building. His franchise quarterback did not want to stay there anymore. Brad Holmes somehow turned an unhappy quarterback into a happy younger quarterback, 2 first-round picks, and a 3rd-round pick. This was a phenomenal trade for the Detroit Lions. We've talked about it several times on the channel since the trade has occurred. And although it is not official yet, somehow if one of the 2 quarterbacks fails a physical, or if something is to be misunderstood, or if something is to be reversed, the trade is not 100% guaranteed as of right now. However, more likely than not, there's about a 99% chance that this trade will go through, and that in his first trade as a general manager, Brad Holmes will get 2 first-round picks, a young star quarterback, and a 3rd-round pick out of an aging, injury-prone quarterback that was unhappy with the organization to begin with. That was phenomenal value for Matt Stafford, and being the first move of a career, being the first move of your general manager tenure with a team, that is quite the way to start for Brad Holmes. And if his first move and if his early success is any indication of how he will run this team and how he will build and develop this franchise moving forward, it will be a very good hire and it will pay off tremendously for the Detroit Lions. Now, just a couple of days after Brad Holmes was announced to be the new general manager of our Detroit Lions, Dan Campbell Dan the Man Campbell, the dude from the Big Lebowski, whatever you want to call him, Motor City Dan Campbell, was hired to be the head coach of our Detroit Lions. Now, I really like Dan Campbell. I wasn't the biggest fan of him. He was not the biggest name on the coaching carousel, and of course, wasn't my first option as the head coaching position. However, taking a deep dive at Dan Campbell, looking at his strengths and why he was brought into the Lions organization, it's very clear to understand why, and it's very clear that Dan Campbell was a good option and could very easily become a top head coach in the NFL. Now, Dan Campbell is, I think, one of his strengths is understanding teamwork, understanding how people work. He's a very good people person. He's a motivator. He has fire. He has passion. He's going to get his guys ready. He's going to get everybody in Detroit, everybody on the team, everybody in the organization believing that they can win immediately. And, you know, when you're looking at head coaches, when you're looking at guys for the head coaching position, one of the biggest factors and one of the biggest bullet points for Lions fans was he has to be a leader of men. And that is exactly what Dan Campbell is. He's a leader of men. He's a motivator. He brings fire. He brings passion to the locker room. And if you are going to hire a head coach to lead a football team, to lead a franchise into a game, into battle, you want Dan Campbell to be the guy to do so, because his fire, his passion is infectious, and I can only imagine what it's like to stand in front of him, be in that locker room, and experience the full effect of Dan Campbell's motivation. Now, not to mention, Dan Campbell was also brought in because of his coaching connections and his ability to build a top staff for the Detroit Lions. And so far, although he has not done a lot, and although this coaching staff has not hit the field yet, it does seem as though it will be a very solid coaching staff. And on paper, at least in the offseason or the preseason, it does seem to be a very, very good staff for the Detroit Lions. Now, when you're talking about this new look Lions staff, when you're talking about this organization and how they've built up their new regime, they focused a lot and they put a lot of emphasis on former players. Our quarterbacks coach, our running backs coach, our wide receivers coach, our defensive backs coach, our offensive coordinator, our defensive coordinator, along with many other positional coaches, are former players. And between all of them, they have almost a century of playing experience, not with the Detroit Lions, of course, but have almost a century of NFL playing experience, which can be very, very helpful for a Lions team that is young, inexperienced in the NFL, inexperienced when it comes to playoff, and generally just a younger franchise and a younger team overall. Now, starting with the offensive coordinator in Anthony Lynn, I think this is a very solid hire for the Lions. I thought this was one of the bigger name offensive coordinator candidates that were out there. I thought this was a solid hire when they made it. Anthony Lynn, a former running back in the NFL, was pretty solid. And then when he became a coach, when he joined I believe the Buffalo Bills as the first offensive coordinator job, he was a very successful offensive coordinator. His offenses are always very solid. He draws up a lot of really good scheme as far as rushing attack. He draws up very good rushing attacks. Has a very good scheme to get running backs in space, to get running backs in the open, and really get his running backs a bulk of their production. And I think Deuce Staley, the running backs coach, again a former running back, will be able to really help both Kerryon Johnson and DeAndre Swift take that next big step into the future. Obviously, DeAndre stepping into his sophomore season and Kerryon Johnson stepping into his fourth year as an NFL veteran. I think Deuce Staley will help both of them tremendously, and from that perspective, I like Deuce Staley's hire, and I like the Anthony Lynn hire because of his experience as a running back, because of his experience as an offensive coordinator. He was one of the more experienced offensive coordinators on the market, and the Lions were able to bring him in to really, in my opinion, help out our running back room and really try to rebuild a rushing attack in Detroit that we have not seen in so long, since really Barry Sanders retired. Now, looking at the defensive staff, and more particularly the new defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn, he's a former defensive back in the NFL. He played a long time at an NFL level as a defensive back and was actually one of the hottest names of defensive coordinators that was on the market this season for teams looking for that new defensive coordinator. Now, I believe Aaron Glenn, being a former DB himself, being a former defensive backs coach himself in New Orleans, I believe we'll be able to get the best out of our young secondary, whether that be Jeff Okudah, Amani Oruwariye, Will Harris, Tracy Walker, or Mike Ford, or any of the other young defensive backs that happen to be scattered across this roster. You know, being a former defensive backs coach, being a defensive backs coach that has coached a lot of good players, a lot of good secondary players, including Marshawn Lattimore, Malcolm Jenkins, and many other very big all-pro, Pro Bowl kind of players, I believe he will be able to get the best out of our young secondary. And overall, I think he just has a very good defensive mind for the new defensive coordinator position. So from that standpoint, I also believe that he will be able to be a good defensive coordinator. I believe he will be able to bring the best out of a lot of our defensive talent that we do have on the roster. And just in general, based off the small bit I've heard about him, based off the small bit that I've seen from press conferences and press releases and news statements, he seems to understand something that Matt Patricia never did. Now, based off of his press conferences and based off the way he has answered the question so far asked to him by the media, it seems as though Aaron Glenn understands one thing in particular. You have to fit your scheme around the players. You have to be able to have an adjustable scheme, a scheme that you can fit to a lot of different players, and a scheme that molds around the players versus forcing players with various skill sets and players that may not have every tool that you want to mold into a scheme. And this is the exact opposite of what Matt Patricia tried to do. Matt Patricia came in with his scheme, his idea, his philosophy, and regardless of what position you played, regardless of how good you were, regardless of what your name was or where you played for the Detroit Lions, Matt Patricia was going to put in his guys regardless if it was the best talent or not, because he felt that the worst talent fit his scheme better. Aaron Glenn is going to be the exact opposite of that. He is going to put the best talent on the field and figure out the scheme around that. He's going to let Jared Davis play to his strengths. He's going to let Amani and Tracy Walker and Jeff Okudah play to their strengths. He's going to let Romeo Okwara and Danny Shelton and John Pennicini and Deshaun Hand and Trey Flowers and Jamie Collins all play to their strengths. And he's not going to force these players to fit into a scheme that he already has preset. He's going to look at the talent. He's going to ask his GM, he's going to ask his head coach to get him the best talent available, and he's going to develop and make a scheme surrounding the players that will play to players' strengths. Now, again, as I said, this is the opposite of what Matt Patricia was looking to do, and I think Matt Patricia's system, his marriage and his commitment to a system that was so clearly flawed was one of his biggest downfalls, and we already have an upgrade over that in our first-time defensive coordinator in Aaron Glenn. So when looking at this coaching staff, when looking at this new regime, from the offensive coordinator, the defensive coordinator, some of the positional coaches that will help out our players develop and grow into better NFL talents, I do believe the Lions got this right. I do believe the Lions went in the right direction. Instead of hiring another X's and O's guys, they got a motivational guy. They got a guy that understands teamwork. They got a guy that understands that one scheme is not going to be great for every situation, and you need to be adaptable. You need to be able to change things on the fly. You need to be able to make adjustments. You need to be able to change your strategy and your philosophy mid-game, and that was something Matt Patricia struggled with, and that is something I think the Lions prioritized when searching for the next regime, and that is exactly what they found. I believe the Lions got this one right. I believe hiring a lot of former players with a lot of playing experience, with a lot of NFL experience, guys that are younger, guys that can relate to players, guys that can motivate the players and really pull the best talent out of the guys on our roster is what the Lions should have been looking for in the first place. And although they had a couple stumbles along the way, including the Quinn Tricia era, I do finally believe the Lions have the right staff in place. They have a lot of former players, they have a lot of motivational guys, they have a lot of guys that understand adjustments and adaptability and changing things on the fly. And although we haven't seen this team on the field, although we haven't seen this coaching staff being put in bad situations, although we haven't seen this coaching staff, we haven't seen Aaron Glenn, we haven't seen Dan Campbell, we haven't seen some of these guys be full-time coordinators, full-time coaches, or even if we have, in the case of Anthony Lynn, guys that haven't been sole coordinators in many, many years. Although this is a young and inexperienced coaching staff, I do believe with a year or two under their belt, they will be an incredibly dangerous coaching staff, and in turn, make this Lions team a very dangerous and a very competitive football team in the near future. With all that being said, that's all I got for you guys today. Again, I think the Lions got this coaching staff right. I think they got this new regime right, and this, I think, think is the coaching staff. This is the new regime, and this is the organization, and this is the look that the Lions have been looking for many, many years. Now, with all that being said, that's all I got for you guys today. Let me know down in the comments below, what do you think about this coaching staff? What do you think about this new regime? Do you think it will be the one to take the Lions over the top? Do you think Dan Campbell and his new look Lions will be the ones to take the Lions organization back to the playoffs? Do you think they'll be the ones to finally take this Lions team to a Super Bowl? Or do you think it will be another X off the chart in a couple of years for failed NFL coaches? Let me know down in the comments below your opinion about this staff. But with all that being said, that's all I got for you guys today. If there is Lions news before tomorrow, then I will obviously make a video letting every single person know. But until then, that's all I got for you guys right now. Thank you all so very much for watching the video, and I will see you all tomorrow with more Lions content. Thank you all so very much for watching. Bye, guys.